Hey, everybody. Carlos Flores here with Cross Country Mortgage. Thank you to our show, What's Cooking SoCal. And today we have a special guest. We have Daniel Velasquez with C21 Realty Masters. We're really excited to interview Daniel today and hear some of his wisdom. So we'll be right back. Hey, everybody. It's been a few weeks and glad I'm back. Wanted to first give you guys a quick mortgage update right before we start up the show. Today, the market has been very good. It was actually volatile for the last couple of weeks. Interest rates wanted to keep pushing up higher and higher. We've had a little bit of a reprieve the last couple of days. So right now, interest rates are probably in the low threes, depending on the type of program, of course. There is some great news that just came out recently. That the loan limit for conventional loans and high balance loans is going to increase with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans. Currently, the maximum loan amount in San Bernardino, Riverside counties, it was 400 and it was really low. 522,000, and it's going to actually increase to 625,000. So that's a huge change in our numbers. So we'll be able to help a lot of people out in the San Bernardino, Riverside counties purchase a little bit more and not have to go into the jumbo market. So that's huge. Also in LA County and Orange County, high balance loan amounts are going to increase to about 937,000 from 822,000. So that's great news coming out. We're already starting to do those type of loans right now. The other thing too, there's a lot of talk of inflation. They're already talking about inflation's going to get bad next year. So the government's going to start to do that tapering. They were talking about next year, but now they're talking about making that change in November, December. So inflation, I think we all know, it's been the talk for the last few months, and everything's more expensive, gas, milk, everything. So we know it's coming. I know the government's trying to help the economy stay healthy, and we'll see what happens in the next few months. But if you guys are trying to refinance or purchase, today is the time to get into the market before interest rates starts to spike up in closer to the 4% range. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my special guest, Daniel Velasquez with C21 Realty Masters. Thank you, Daniel, for coming on board.
No, thanks for having me.
So Daniel, you've been in the business, you said real estate about 8 years now, right?
Yeah, 8 years.
And you were a loan officer too. So you went to the dark side.
I don't know if it was a dark side. It was definitely a learning experience.
Oh, you got out of the dark side.
No, I mean, getting out of the dark side, I was going to a loss mitigation specialist.
That's right. Yeah. So how was that? That was after the meltdown, I'm assuming?
November 2008. So I did loans right after 9/11.
Ooh, wow.
And that's when I got into it, early 2000s. Then 8 years solid, 8 years straight. Then market obviously, took a hit in the financial sector, and I went into loss mitigation. That was different. It's just like anything, right? You go from providing loans to now trying to collect on those defaulted loans.
Yeah,
it was the weirdest shift, but it was good. And it's one of those things where it's definitely a learning curve.
Yeah, you learn all the aspects, right, of the lending side, the real estate side, and loss mitigation. I mean, overall, I mean that has a lot of experience in itself. So yeah, and thanks for coming on board. So Daniel, what is it that you're specialized right now in?
Right now, 1 to 4 units. So My clients, the families that I work with, are they're first-time home buyers, or they're looking for up to 4 units. I mainly focus on residential. I do dive into a little bit into the commercial side, but mainly is just residential.
Okay, very good. What areas do you work right now?
Southern California, man. As far as within an hour and a half from Norwalk, you're gonna see me there. Outside of that 2-hour radius, is like, oh, you know what? It's about knowing the market, having access to MLS. If I have access to MLS, I'm there. If I don't, we're gonna refer it out just to give the customer a better experience.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I know there's a lot of agents. Actually, I just got a client that told me his agent was up north in Bakersfield and wanted to sell their house out here in Norwalk or one of these. And I told him, I don't think that's a great idea. They're not going to be able to open the door if somebody wants to go see the house.
Right. See, and that's the thing, because I've actually done real estate in Bakersfield. Bakersfield is one of those crazy ones where, in order for you to have MLS access, you have to purchase the whole year. And if you're only going to use it for 2 to 3 weeks, you're paying up front for the whole year. And the only way you have access to those properties, if it's someone from down here has a listing up there. So you don't have full access to it. And that's different when you're trying to help out a customer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always better to service your if for a consumer, it's always better to get a real estate agent that's more familiar with the area too.
Yeah. I believe in it. I believe that if you have, to choose, right, between an agent who's familiar with your neighborhood, who lives in the community, works in the community, has a stand in the community, you're better off going there than hiring someone that's 2 or 3 hours away, even though you might feel comfortable with them, their experience, you probably done business with them in the past. The type of level of knowledge is just not going to be there.
Right.
And right now you do need that knowledge.
Yeah. So Daniel, what do you think the challenges are right now in purchasing for a lot of because we talked about this, I know you do a lot of listings, but what would you say is the biggest challenge for buyers right now in this market?
Competing. Look, we're not even competing with cash offers like it used to be, many years ago. Right now, I think the hardest thing is trying to compete with those who are buying a second home or who are buying an upleg, who are moving from LA County into, for example, Riverside, San Bernardino counties. The reason why they just have so much equity, they have so much money, larger down payment. So now you're competing with those. Unfortunately, that finance offer now looks like a cash offer because they have the money, they have the financial resource. Now they're able to take advantage of the equity they built over the last 5 to 6 years. And now you're competing with that. So the biggest thing right now that I tell the families I'm working with on my buying side is be patient. And eventually this is going to pass. Eventually the market is going to stabilize. Eventually, we went 6 months to a year ago, properties having 15, 20 offers. Now you're seeing 5 to 10. So we're starting to see a trend where it's starting to stabilize. It's starting to slow down. You're not seeing crazy things where you're removing appraisal loan contingencies, just for the fun of it. Now you're seeing more agents, like coming down to an idea of like, look, let's figure out what we can get first, and then we decide what we do afterwards on the contingency period. So it's starting to slow down.
Right, that's good. But we're not going to see a crash, right? Because everybody's always asking me. We're waiting for the market to crash so we can get into the market.
No crash. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I tell my families. No crash. Are we going to see a price correction? Yes, but we tend to see a price correction in any market. Yeah. A crash, I don't know where it's going to happen. You have to understand, for those, for my families that have been saying it's going to be like 2008, 9, and 10, or even worse. No, it's not. 2008, 9, and 10, what happened, there were just a lot of bad loans written, and you don't have that now. A lot of loans that you see now over the last 10 years, they're fully documented income. So the only way you're going to see a financial crash in the housing market is if all those loans go bad, and they're not going bad. The other thing I hear a lot of families say is, COVID. Well, yeah, COVID definitely suppressed the market where you have very little inventory, but that's not indicative of a crash coming our way. If anything, COVID just exacerbated the market where now you have these crazy values because all those buyers who were waiting to get in finally got in. Well, they left because they got scared. And that's just not what you're seeing right now.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, we have a lot of clients that were renting and they'd rather live in their own house and their own space than have to rent and live next door to a bunch of neighbors, right? So
yeah, and look, no crash. Let's just get that out there. No crash. Price correction, I see it. When it's going to happen, we don't have a crystal ball, but I do see that once rates start to slowly go up, we're talking about inflation. You were mentioning it earlier today. Once you start seeing those things, I think within the next 6 months, you're going to start seeing a little bit more of a compression with starting of a price correction. Mm-hmm. But that's going to go into maybe the summer of next year. But a crash, no, we can't scare the market and say there's going to be a crash. There's definitely not going to be a crash. Price correction, yes.
Yeah. And I think we're going to start seeing the market slow down once interest rates start to go up. Like I mentioned earlier,
absolutely,
rates are going to start pushing closer to 4% like they were a few years ago. And that typically tends to correct the market as well. So you're not going to have as many buyers in the market. So sellers will start to get more realistic with their prices, right?
Right. I know, absolutely. And the thing is, a lot of families have to understand because, I do help a lot of buyers as well. When you go from a 3% interest rate, you just talking about Riverside being 622,000 purchase price.
Yeah.
You know, an eighth of a rate up to a quarter, even 0.5%, it's going to make that buyer really think twice. Do they really want to go out there on that high price point? And once you start seeing that payment shock, then what happens is they start thinking. And when you have many of those buyers thinking, whoa, this payment is a lot higher, then the market begins to compress. Then you start seeing the price correction. Then you start seeing properties stay on the market a little bit longer. And that's, I think, what's going to happen next year.
Yep, I agree. How has COVID changed the market for you?
Okay, so I want to say close to 100% of my business from March of last year until this present day, my business was 100%, nearly 100% past clients or referrals. Mm-hmm. So for me, it really didn't change in the aspect of did I lose business, did I gain business? It actually remained the same. I actually want to say I probably did about 15% more business last year than the year before that because of COVID. And then this year we're trending about 16, 17%. So because I have a reputation of providing good customer service, that has carried me along the way with COVID. I do know not everyone has been that fortunate. I do know I have some friends who unfortunately are struggling in this market just because it has changed. It has gone to a really oriented listing side. And if you don't have the patience, it's really going to take a hit. For me, I've been very fortunate. I've been very blessed where it didn't do much for me. It actually elevated my business a little bit more. Once again, it has more to do with the fact that I have repeated and past clients.
Okay. I have a question for you. I had a client last night that I was talking to, and he has a property that he's had for a few years, a lot of equity, and he's considering selling and buying another property closer to work. But he's afraid that if he lists his house, he's going to be homeless if his house doesn't, if he doesn't find a house to purchase in the next couple of months. What would you tell a consumer, like a potential buyer or somebody that owns a house already? What would you advise them?
Don't be scared. Hire the right agent. Experience matters. It's something that I've been saying over the last 2 years. Experience matters. Hiring the right agent is really going to go ahead and make those fears go away. There's something called contingency sale for that particular client. It's where you're going to sell yours, but in order for you to close escrow, you have to find a replacement home. It's called contingency sale. Right now, we've been doing those. I've actually had 3 of those within the last 14, 16 months where we're not closing escrow until we have a replacement home. And believe it or not, if you're scared about that move, really think about the benefit of actually selling at this high market now and be able to buy outside or close, in this case, closer to work. You'll be able to see that hiring the right agent with the experience and making the right moves is actually going to alleviate some of that stress or the anxiety that a lot of homeowners have when they're thinking about selling because they don't want to get caught in the market. Or like, well, I go from being hot commodity as a seller to now being like, oh, now I'm just a buyer. Now I'm waiting and I'm in that bucket. So no, hiring the right agent is definitely going to make that anxiety go away.
Right. How do you mostly communicate with your clients? And this is actually helpful for a lot of real estate agents that are in the market that are struggling. I know you're a very successful real estate agent at your office, and you mentioned a little bit of having to go back. A lot of your business is from past clients. How do you communicate with your clients?
I hate text. I hate text. I'm going to be the first one to tell you out there. I hate text. I hate email. I actually pick up the phone and call. Nice. I'm one of those old school agents where I like picking up the phone. I like hearing my client's voice. For some reason, they think I'm funny. So the first call is, good morning, how you doing? And then by the time we end up the conversation, there's times I have to call them back just because I forgot to tell them what we're going to tell them. But no, I'm more of like, let's pick up the phone. Let's have a conversation of what's going on. Every Wednesday, I actually have what I call admin day. And that's when I'm reviewing all the files. I'm finding with all my clients. So at least they're going to hear from me every Wednesday. But yeah, I'm old school. I like to pick up the phone and have that kind of conversation with them.
So do you have like a list of your clients and that you particularly call in a certain order or random?
Nope.
What's your process?
We call them all. The one that's the way I've been able to do it the last few years, and I've changed it up quite a bit a few times already. But the one that's going to close escrow the soonest is the one that gets the call. The one that if there's a fire that we have to light out, that's the first call that goes. And then I just go throughout my day making those calls. Typically, I want to say on Wednesday, I probably spend about 3 hours of
Wow.
just following up with clients. I have the best TCs out there, and I meet with my TCs every Wednesday. We're there at 9 o'clock, and then from there we go through the files. But relationship based, you could only gain relationship just picking up the phone and making that phone call.
Nice.
Even if you have to deliver bad news, you have to get comfortable delivering bad news, because if you don't do it, someone else will. And believe it or not, my experience has been over the last 15 years in the industry, no news, and then when you hit them with that bad news, they're going to take it bad. But if you're constantly communicating with them, if you let them know, throughout the process what's going on, they'd rather hear it from you, and they'd rather get it right away and then have a solution for it afterwards.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you're going to give the bad news, at least have a solution, right?
Exactly. Like if we're going to deliver someone, like I'm pretty sure you've been to the dealer, right? You go to the dealer and you go in for an oil change, and then by the time they call your service advisor, I mean, oil change like $200. You go in, they call you, there's like $700 worth of repairs. You don't want to hear that. Right. But if you go in and they tell you, hey, sir, Mr. Flores, in about 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to need new tires. You go do an oil change, you're expecting, hey, they're going to tell me about the new tires. It's not such a blow anymore.
That's true.
You have to see clients the same way. If you communicate throughout the whole entire process, even the bad news, even the bad things, you have to be able to tell them and say it in a way where, yes, there is a problem here, but you have to believe that you put the right team around you, the right loan officer, the right processor, the right TC, the right escrow people, the right title, everyone. You have to believe you put the right people around you to where even bad news comes with a solution. Aside from that, you're probably going to be struggling if you can't deliver the bad news and you have the wrong team around you anyways.
Yeah, that's true. I always make an analogy of being on a plane, right? Imagine if you're on a plane and the pilot, all of a sudden there's some turbulence and the pilot starts screaming, what would everybody freak out, right?
Right.
Of course not. You got to be calm, collected, and we're going to experience some turbulence. We're going to have some dips in the process,
exactly.
But that's okay. We're here to help.
And also, one thing that I've been doing the last 2 years, and I think it's taken me from point A to point B, at least in this market, is you have to set the right expectation from day one. From day one, you have to set the expectation. Right now, what I've been doing with my clients is like, this is the process. This is what buying a house is going to look like. We might be in it 3 to 6 weeks before we find something. Once we're in there, this is the process. These are the milestones. Either way, you're going to hear from me. But if you go in there blindly, you have to understand that I believe buyers they're scared, they're nervous, they're thinking about the financing, they're thinking about the payment. And if they only hear from you when you're going to deliver bad news, what customer service are we delivering at that point? They don't want you to call only when you have bad news. Yes. Do we want to deliver good news? Absolutely. Do you want to make that phone call? We close, here are your keys. Absolutely. But we also have to put on the hat of like, we are the problem solver, and you got to put the right team around you in order to do that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. We've been known to be called a Milagro Mortgage sometimes.
You guys are good. You guys are really good what you do. But just think about this, right? So you have a client, first-time home buyer, moving from, for example, let's say Los Angeles into San Bernardino, and then they work in Los Angeles area. They're thinking about a commute that's going to be an hour to an hour and a half. But then they're going from renting an apartment to owning a house. Well, if you don't set the right expectation, if you don't have that conversation with them and say, look, Mr. Flores, are you willing to make this drive that's going to take you an hour to an hour and a half every day? Mm-hmm. If you don't have that conversation throughout the whole entire process, they're going to be thinking about those things. And if they start thinking about them, just like anything, fear gets the best of us. But if you start having those conversations from day one, by the time you close and you send that right expectation, those are no longer fears. They go from fears to concerns to like, you know what, I am able to do this. But it goes back to this, the expectation. You have to lay it out from the start. Otherwise, the whole process is going to be turbulence. You don't want to deal with the fire that's turbulent, because then what happens is my main focus the last few years has been to create an experience with the home buying process. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the selling process. If I'm not creating that right expectation, if I'm not laying down the framework, if I'm not communicating throughout the milestones, and if I'm only delivering bad news, that experience is no longer a good experience. It's a bad experience.
Right.
And we can't do that, because we end up hurting that customer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. And at the same time, you won't get that referral business anymore.
Right.
Right.
And like I said, almost 100% of my business the last 18 months has been referral based.
Nice.
And if I'm delivering that bad customer service, if I'm not communicating, if I'm not following up with everyone, if I don't know what's going on with the transaction, and if I only call for that bad delivery or that bad news, there's no referral. And more importantly, like if I cannot create an experience, an atmosphere for our home buyers to think like, man, you know what, I'm excited. When do we get the keys? By the time they get the keys, they're gonna be so burned out by the transaction that that experience just blows out. People only remember the bad things.
That's true. Just like in any restaurant, you go to a restaurant, it's terrible, and you'll tell the world, right? Don't go to that restaurant.
Exactly. And it was, the food might have been great. The food might have been great. The customer service was just subpar, but the food was excellent. The environment was excellent. The location was beautiful, but someone failed to deliver that experience.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and that's what we try to do on a daily basis is provide great experiences for the consumer, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah. But you have to go with that mindset. Prior to being in the loan side, I used to run a call center. I was used to customer service.
Yeah.
And I was a supervisor. I had to deal with all the bad calls. So, you've had to learn, you got to learn how to deliver bad news with grace to start off with. But you also have to learn how to be the calm person, even in the middle of the storm. Recently, I posted something on social media. It was a duck. And the captions, just to paraphrase, read something like, cool on the outside, but underneath is kicking.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what real estate is. That's exactly what a real estate agent is. You have to be calm. That's where experience matters. But you also have to be a problem solver. And right now, problem solving in this market, even to get offers accepted, you have to be a good problem solver right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why you guys should work with Daniel. Daniel will take care of you in getting your home sold and also getting your home, your first-time buyers. Thank you very much, Daniel. Yeah, thanks so much for being on the show. Looking forward to seeing you at the office. And you guys are at a great office at C21 Realty Masters, Norwalk, right?
Yeah, we're here in Norwalk. So let us know. Stop on by. We're always here to definitely help you out. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. We're here for you guys.
I appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show, Daniel.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys.
Take care. Well, thank you very much for being on the show, Daniel. As I've known him for a few years, and he's a great asset to the C21 brand, and he's a great professional. If you guys ever meet him, you'll see he is an awesome person to know. But thank you so much for being on the show. Looking forward to seeing you guys next time. I have no cooking going on right now, but I do have actually, I'm gonna make smoked brisket tamales in the next few weeks. So I'm gonna see how those come out. So I'm gonna put a little bit of barbecue flair into my tamales. Never done before, so wish me luck, guys. But I'll see you guys at the next show. Take care.